Good morning, Chairman Wyden, Senator Barrasso. Pleasure to be here. I'm Gregg Kantor, President and CEO of Northwest Natural, a local gas distribution company serving one of your favorite places, Portland, Oregon, and the rest of Oregon and Southwest Washington. We have about 690,000 customers in that area. As you've heard already, the shale gas revolution has fundamentally changed the energy future of this country, reshaped it in many ways. And while a decade ago we were looking at tight supplies and rising prices, today we have abundance and much lower prices going forward. Just as context for our customers, our 690,000 customers, over the last 4 years, lower gas prices have saved them over $400 million. Nationally, gas customers have been saved $250 billion over the last 3 years. And it's, as you've heard, shale gas supplies are also creating a resurgence in the industrial sector of the country as well. Critical question, as you posed today, is whether all this abundant supply and lower costs are going to be used in the transportation sector. We believe that it should, that you end up with a sort of triple bottom line with less dependence on foreign oil, less cost for consumers. In our service territory, it costs about half the price to operate a vehicle on natural gas as it does diesel or gasoline. And you end up with lower greenhouse gas emissions, 30% lower gas emissions driving a natural gas vehicle versus one powered by gasoline. I hate to use the word, but I'll give you a nickel. We do have a chicken and an egg problem, and we've got manufacturers at this table today who.
But you and GE are going to fix that, right?
We're gonna fix that.
Why don't you tell everybody about Gregg, about what you and Mr. Bowles and some environmental folks are looking at, because it sounds really attractive on the chicken and egg front.
Well, what we are trying to do at this point is put together a working group that basically at your request that will have a broad range of interests on it, from environmental community interests to producers and manufacturers, infrastructure manufacturers, that can look at creative ways to get beyond the infrastructure, the refueling infrastructure that we have today. And I think also importantly to address some of the environmental community concerns about fugitive methane emissions. And we're putting that group together, hope to have it together in June and to be able to come up with some creative ideas that we can bring back to this committee.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Bowles. We'll give you a chance to talk about that a little bit later, because this is exactly the kind of fresh bipartisan approach we ought to be looking at, and it may or may not require legislation. But the point is, this is something that the federal government at a minimum ought to move the machinery around in order to promote. And we'll give you a crack at that a little bit later. But I wanted Oregonians to make a little news with a new effort. And please go ahead, Mr. Kantor.
So I would just say, again, the utilities, maybe the last point I would make is that the nation's distribution companies can play an important role. We're already doing it with tariffs across the country that are helping us provide particularly compression services to commercial fleets where they have a return to base operations and can do that. We would encourage Congress to continue the tax credits for refueling infrastructure that are existing and for the use of alternative fuels. Understand that there are critical financial issues, but as you said, we need to come up with some creative ways to move beyond that. And again, I hope this committee that we're putting together can do that, and hope to come back to this committee in the coming months.
And you all think, Mr. Bowles, you might want to get into this too. You all think you could have something underway starting in June?
I think the teams are working through that right now. It's a very good process. We have a couple targeted pilot areas, which you mentioned, and I think there's some real potential to do it in the short term. Now, whether it's done by June, we'll see. But I think that we've really identified some short-term things, not only for CNG, but LNG. And the issue that Mr. Kantor touched on as far as the infrastructure is the key thing that this will put the light on and start to make it happen.
Yeah, I want it understood. I think we all know you can't have a completed project underway, a completed project by June. What I'd like to do, if we're going to have these forums in May with the calendar already sort of getting chock full and backed up, to have a sense of what you think you could do so we could present it to Democrats and Republicans on the committee and look at what we might be able to do to promote it.
Good.
All right. That completes your testimony?
It does.
All right, Mr. Prohaska, thank you.